put this session on our website. And we've got a big crowd with us today as far as the presenters go. So I'm going to just hand it over to them and let them do introductions and then go down their agenda, and I'll jump in as I need to, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So I'm going to hand it over to the people from the Children's Developmental Services Agency.
Okay. Are we going to do
that?
All right,
Andy, going to introduce.
All right, we're all going to introduce ourselves. My name is Andy Gelsthorpe, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker with the CDSA of the Blue Ridge.
I'm Christelle Marsh. I'm an educational diagnostician as well as an early intervention service coordinator for the CDSA of the Blue Ridge. And we probably don't all have to say that last part.
And I think I'm next alphabetically. I am Kylie Booth, and I am also an educational diagnostician, and I work in Wilkes, but I also cover all 7 counties.
Michelle?
Actually, it's Megan's next because
okay.
I. But I'll go. All right. I am Michelle Fitz. I am a speech language pathologist, and I recently was offered the position as the CDSA of the Blue Ridge director. So it's really good to meet all of you today.
And I'm Megan, the occupational therapist that doesn't know alphabetical order. And I work for the CDSA of the Blue Ridge with all these lovely people.
I'm Sarah Cook. I'm an early intervention service coordinator.
And I'm Sean Horton. I'm also an early intervention service coordinator in Ashe County.
I'm Teresa Goss. I'm an educational diagnostician part of the time and an early intervention service coordinator part of the time in all 7 counties. But Sarah, Sean, and I are located in the Ashe office.
All right, that is a big crew. Like I said, that's the biggest crew we have. So welcome everybody. We're excited to hear more about what y'all do.
Okay, I just wanted to start by letting everyone know about the CDSA. We are also known as the Infant Toddler Program, so the North Carolina Infant Toddler Program. We are a system of supports and services for children ages birth up to age 3 who have or are at established risk for developmental delays. We are governed by Part C, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So we have state and federal regulations that we have to follow. And the IDEA falls under the Office of the Special Education Program. Okay. The state vision for the Infant Toddler Program is for families and caregivers of children enrolled in the North Carolina Infant Toddler Program is that they will be able to help their children reach their maximum potential. The mission is to provide supports and services to families and children to help them be successful in their homes and in their communities by using everyday learning opportunities. We will respect the diversity of families and use evidence-based practices to guide our work. So a little bit about the IDEA. Early intervention system of services is provided under the federal law. And we are actually under the Part C, early intervention services, which serves those children birth to age 3 with developmental delays or established conditions. Those are medical conditions that put the child at risk for developmental delays. Part C under IDEA, or Part B under IDEA, is the preschool program. And they serve under Section 619, the age 3 to 5, and then the school age 5 to age 21. So we wanted to give the map of the CDSAs across North Carolina because we thought that there may be some participants that maybe are not in our catchment area. So the really light yellow is the Blue Ridge. So that covers Allegheny, Ashe, Wilkes, Watauga, Avery, Yancey, and Mitchell. And then the other ones, if you're in another county, you can reference down at the bottom. That will let you know what CDSA your county falls under. So we wanted to let everyone have the map so they would know that every county is represented by a CDSA. So children can get services through these CDSAs if they're 0 to age 3 and they qualify.
So first, if there's no questions so far, just wanted to talk a little bit about trauma and just our experiences with families pre-COVID. So first of all, as she said, we are a program for children birth to 3 and their families. So we also are a voluntary program. So with recognizing that, sometimes we may be the first agency that a family has had contact with if the referral comes from the parent or a doctor, or we might be one of many agencies that they might be sent to all at once, especially for those kiddos that have a diagnosis, as she mentioned. And then we also might be an agency that is a direct result of other agencies they're involved with, such as social services and things. So just being mindful when we're starting to work with a family that they are ready and able to process the information that we're giving them, because of course we're coming in to assess their child's development and offer them support. But we also have to know that they're in a place to hear that and accept that because we all have different situations. COVID's absolutely taken precedence over, I think, all of our lives the last year, but there were always many things to deal with pre-COVID as well. So we have different backgrounds and situations. Some families who are
Just muted. I don't know what happened. Can you, something may have come unplugged. It was sudden.
I don't know if you're.
There it is. You're good.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know what that was. Sorry.
Oh, it's telling me my connection's unstable, so
Okay.
I don't know. But anyway, I apologize. I don't know where I left off.
Pre-COVID, you still had some challenges and struggles, okay. But then.
Okay. So some of our families, may be more secure than others as far as housing, finances, and those different things. And so we have to make sure that those steps are in place before we can even start to talk about their development, because that can feel extra when you're dealing with all of these other things going on.
And so then that was something that I did not know. Sorry to interrupt you. No. When I think of y'all, I think of evaluations and services, but y'all also have like case management for meeting basic needs then? I wasn't aware of that.
Well, it's not necessarily that we have case management to meet their basic needs, but if a child qualifies in things, we work with them on helping coach them to find resources and make sure that it's more about meeting them where they are. We're not going to step in and give those support services, but we can point them in the right direction and make sure that they're in a place where they can accept our information, because we know that if their basic needs aren't being met, then they're not going to be able to hear or address anything that we're trying to get to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it may be through other, community resources and things, but definitely just trying to be mindful of where they are as a whole.
Gotcha.
And that was just my next point as far as trauma. We definitely see families who have been through trauma themselves, or their child is actively going through a traumatic situation. And we might also see parents, for those of us who have done this for a really long time, we might see parents that we've worked with before and things. And so you see that cycle of, where they may not have had support before. So we're seeing it kind of continue, or currently we see a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren. And so just being there to offer that support and also giving them those tools moving forward And then, so yeah, that's just the main thing. And we also might have families, like I said, if they've been involved with other agencies, they may have negative connotations with workers or people coming into the home and things. So we definitely want to be sensitive in how we come in and offer our information, because our goal,
Sorry about that.
our goal is really just to offer support and help them work through things with their children through their day-to-day activities to help support them, because they are their child's first and most important teacher.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry about the muting. I'm double checking. I think everybody's muted now. My apologies. If just make sure to keep yourself on mute, please. All right. Thank you, Sarah. And so now I pulled up my agenda to make sure I was with y'all. Now we're going to talk about some of the trauma impacts that we've experienced during COVID, which many of us are very familiar with these firsthand. So we'll step into that next section. I'm watching chat too, and I don't see any questions just yet.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and lead the discussion on that in terms of looking at child development, since that's our area of expertise, and how we have seen the impacts of COVID and the social isolation and what that has done to children 0 to 3. And when I begin this conversation, I want to think about kids, especially when they were, they might have been newborns or like 3 or 4 month olds when they came into this, and that was 14 months ago. And so since that time, they have been able to learn how to walk, to learn how to talk, and to become much more independent. And so the first thing I thought about was, we're seeing a lot of stranger anxiety. Children develop stranger anxiety somewhere between 6 to 8 months. It's very typical. It usually peaks between 12 and 15 months, and then it kind of gradually declines. And we're seeing this now for an extended period of time. And that's due because a lot of children just haven't been around other non-family members, non-immediate family members. Some children are showing anxiety even when they go to the playground and they see other children that are same or near aged because they've never seen them before in person. This can also be seen when, let's say, grandma or grandpa comes to visit and they've been Zooming with these family members this entire time, but it's been through this media and it's not been in person. And so these children, when grandma might come to visit, grandma, all she wants to do is hold that baby. She wants to snuggle on that baby. Like, this is what she wants. But that baby's like, I don't really know you, and they might be showing a lot of anxiety around that. And they might cling to their parents, and to let people know right now, this is what we're working on. He is showing, I'm going to use Hank. Hank is showing a lot of stranger anxiety. Let's just take it really easy, really simple. We know where he's at and support him right there. So just kind of, what is the expectation of that visit? Let's let him warm up at his own pace. We're seeing children having difficulties with transitions, particularly transitions outside of their safe place. So outside of that safe home environment. That could include riding in cars, things that we take for granted. Kids haven't been going anywhere. Parents have been keeping them at home. So even transitioning into that car seat, out of the car seat, this is a whole new thing for a lot of kids. Challenges entering into new social situations when they don't know what social back and forthness looks like outside of their family members. Everything is new to them. Prior to COVID, they would have had more practice, but they don't have that practice. Going into the grocery store, that buzzing of the lights, all those people around them, all these new noises, that can also cause them to have a lot of difficulty. Going into other people's homes. So, now we can go visit grandma. Well, they're unfamiliar with that place and they really haven't explored other people's homes, but they know their own. So again, meeting the child where the child is at and giving them the support they need to take small steps. Children are also showing a lot of separation distress. And that, again, starts up around 6 to 8 months. And, that it is definitely a part of typical development, but we're seeing it heightened and we're seeing it lengthened in time. So pre-COVID, when you had your baby and, once the baby could like be in a little pouch and face out to the world, we'd go out in the world with the baby and they'd interact with people at the grocery or at the farmer's market or, as you're at the soccer game with the other kids. And so that child would be so used to being interactive at a small age when they were just tiny. And that opportunity has not been had for these children. So as parents begin to go back to work that might not be at home and the child begins to have to go to childcare or a different caregiver, we're seeing that separation anxiety, that separation distress really peaking. And this, again, is due to that lack of opportunity of separating, which would be typical, thinking of, dropping them off at the church nursery or having a night out and you have a babysitter. Like all of these things were things that we used to do. And, in the future, how do you deal with that? So with separation distress, if you do decide we are going to have a babysitter, take it slow, introduce that babysitter, bring the babysitter into your home. Let the child be familiar with that babysitter before you drop the child off with that person. So again, small steps that are thought through to have that child feel comfortable and safe. And the last one looks at social skills. So like I said, they begin to walk and they've been talking and things are really happening now. And they have not been with other children their age. And so that play component, they have not had the practice of play with same-aged or near-aged peers. So interacting and initiating play, turn taking, parallel play, enjoying shared experiences with other children, reading the cues of other children. So all of those things, many children have had no opportunity to do or learn. And those are things that, again, we provide them with that opportunity in a supported way so that they can begin to practice those skills slowly and safely. I also, wanted to mention that secure attachment is a protective factor in kind of the overall development of a child. And having a secure attachment with a parent or caregiver figure will help them to move forward in a healthy way.
Well, thank you for that, Andy. I'm sitting here thinking about all the things I've seen and not seen in the past year. And I've always been one of those parents who the moment a baby starts fussing, I hand them right back to the parent. I'm not one of those people that are like, it's fine, they'll get used to me in a minute. I'm like, take your baby. We were at a picnic yesterday and there was a baby there. And it, when you're thinking about separation, distress, or anxiety, as soon as we took it from its mom, it started crying and we would give it right back. So we'll probably talk maybe more towards the end, and I've written this down as a possible questions, just tips that some of us who are maybe not providing services to 0 to 5, but who come across them, even like you said at the store, I'm always tempted to offer to hold someone's baby for them while they're trying to check out or something. So maybe we can circle back around to that if we have time. What are some good tips for those of us who are trying to be supportive, but not be intrusive? So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're going to move towards long-term impacts of COVID and reintegration strategies, which may be what I was kind of getting to. We'll see. So I think Megan's going to take that one.
I think Sean and Teresa both have some stories they'd like to share about our clients, if that's okay.
Yep, that'd be great.
Well, I'd like to start off first and foremost by talking about my son, who happens to be 8 years old, and the effects of COVID on him. Lane is a very outgoing child. He doesn't meet a stranger, unlike me. He's got a great personality and a great sense of humor. But since we had COVID back in November, he's become a little bit more aggressive. We noticed some aggression in him that was not typical for him. And we also noticed that he became very possessive. And when we all went to get COVID tested, his bathroom is actually outside of his room. So the nurse was like, okay, you guys need to use separate bathrooms. You need to do A, B, C, and D. And my son took it to the extreme. Now, keep in mind, we all had COVID, but he would raise total, you know what, if we went into his bathroom to use the bathroom, but he was making us spray it down. And I mean, finally, I just got to the point where I told Amanda, just don't go in his bathroom, just stay in our bathroom and work it from there. But we were able to work with him through that. And once again, we had that child who is a very outgoing child. We just got to see a different side of him. But we are fortunate that once again, we did work through it. We have a great neighborhood where he could go outside and play, unlike other children who are cooped up in other places. I mean, there's enough kids, or there's enough room in our neighborhood where they can run free and do what they want to. But that was one of the big things with him. And so the more Amanda and I talked about it, we were talking about, well, what are we going to do to help Lane? There's no sports going on. He can't stay on the iPad all the time. He can't do A, B, C, and D. So we were calling other parents and support systems that we have in place. And they were like, well, you know, gymnastics is open. So we talked about going to gymnastics and we mask him up and all that stuff. And that was a great turning point for him, that he got to go and participate with same age peers. And now that Ashe County and other places are opening up, he's playing soccer and getting back to the child that we once knew before, which was, it was really, really good. And last night we were talking about something and he was talking about having a friend come over, and it was like, well, that's fine. His best friend will come over and hang out with him this weekend. But pre-COVID or during COVID, you know, that wasn't happening whatsoever. And once again, you got to see him on his iPad, which to me was just kind of bizarre. So once again, we did come up with a strategy for him as far as his iPad. Like he could play on Sundays from like 2 to 4, and that was pretty much it. But he's also being homeschooled at this time, or he goes to Ashe Online. And, you know, I sit at the dinner table and his room's next to it, and I can hear his teacher talking with other kids. And it's like, could y'all like quiet down just a little bit? Because I'll send her messages and I'm like, I don't know how you do it because it's just utter chaos. But she tends to handle them really well. And once again, these are older children, but it's just, even his annoyance level, I think, had increased pretty significantly. So I want to talk just a little bit about a family that I had. And I always thought, am I really getting through to this mom? She was a single mom, had 4 children and a boyfriend. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. And this apartment, to me, it just wasn't fit for anything. But this was the best that she could do at that time. So I remember going over and talking with her, and she said, when we get the COVID bunnies, if you will, during the Trump administration, we're going to buy a trailer. And I was like, okay. And so she explained to me the process of what she was going to do. And I thought, this woman's going to have about $3,000. She's going to be able to buy this trailer and have one of her own. Mind you, she was paying about $650 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment that was it just was not a good place. But it was great to see her move out of that apartment and into that trailer, and the pride and joy that she had for something that she could call her own. And I just thought, you know, that was probably, and we've had parents who make great decisions, but that was probably one of the best decisions that I'd seen. And I thought, you know, it's a shame it took a pandemic to get us into this situation, but she had been listening to me all along. And I just thought that was an excellent thing. You know, mind you, I haven't seen her in a while, and I would love to see her and see how her children are doing, because I know that she was a great mom and she loved her children, and she did what was in the best interest of both she and her family.
John, I appreciate a couple things about what you're saying. One is it made me your first story about your own son made me think of how we all respond differently to trauma or perceived threats. And so someone who's got the resources of 2 parents, 2 bathrooms, and outside, maybe can adapt to that in ways that someone in a different environment might not could. And you talk about seeing him go back more to himself, or what you knew to be himself, whereas somebody else may not move as quickly away from that aggression and frustration because they don't have the same resources. And then the second thing, your second story, was just before I got in here reading about how to build resilience. And it talked about for providers and we all hear about strength-based, but what I love about what you were saying is you really found a way to frame that in terms of the things that she's doing well, and encouraging her to make those good decisions, even though it might not be a decision that we make. She's doing what she thinks is best for her kids. So I appreciate both of those stories. Thank you for sharing those with us.
Welcome.
And then I think somebody else was going to tell a story too.
I'm going to, if that's okay, Miss Denise.
Yes, ma'am.
During this COVID time, I've discovered COVID is no respecter of anything, socioeconomic, cultural, generational. We're all in this storm together. We're not in the same storm. And so people started moving here from all over the country. The housing here was cheaper than a lot of places, and people were coming here out of necessity and losses of jobs, finding jobs. And we've had several referrals recently from people that have moved here for one reason or another. And one particular family that has taught me a lot and has shared some of their struggles with me um, i- i- is is trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, but how to kind of dig out of that trauma and trying to find some resilience because they're a really smart family. Dad was a professional. He was in a very specialized field, and in the beginning of COVID, he was furloughed. Well, he had had a lot of medical issues. His wife has some diagnoses and health issues. Was supposed to never been able to have a child. Was told by multiple professionals that she would never have a child. They even went to fertility. Fertility doctor said, "I'm not taking your money because you cannot carry a child." Well, lo and behold, in the beginning, I guess it was the last part of 2018, mom went to have some surgery. And so she had, the things that she needed to have done for her. And then the doctor said, "Well, do you want to know about the baby?" And she looked at him, said, "Whose baby?" And they're like, "Your baby." And she said, "I can't have a baby. I can't get pregnant. It's not my baby. What are you talking about?" So family had to kind of come to the realization, oh, we're pregnant, we're this age, we have these health issues, da da da. But dad, it's okay. Dad has a good job. We're professionals. We know how to handle things. We've handled hard things before. Well, not COVID. What people handled prior to COVID is really different than what we've handled through the storm of COVID. So the family had to step back a little bit. So dad was furloughed, had all these bills because they were living in a part of the country that's very expensive to live in, but that's where this professional job was. Well, they thought, what can we do? So they moved to Ashe County, which is such a blessing because they have family here. And that was great because grandparents had never really gotten to spend any time with this miracle grandchild. And that part was great until one day they got the call that daddy no longer had a job because it was so specialized and because COVID was hitting this particular career hard. Then just one day that he was told that tomorrow you have no job. Well, they had insurance, they had all this good stuff. And then they had to start thinking, oh my, we still have these medical needs. We can't afford to pay what we were paying. We had to move in with family to be able to afford the medical care we needed with a copay and insurance. Now we have no income and no insurance. So the family had to drop back, punt, swallow a lot of pride because very well educated up until COVID had done quite well. But because of circumstances, they reached out and helped coach them through the process of getting Medicaid because their child still has medical issues. Well, since the child had medical issues and born during this COVID storm, this child had never seen another child other than in a hospital setting. And so when the weather started to get a little better, they went to the park. Their child had never seen another child. So there was one child about the same size, same height as this child, and this child went up to the other child and touched her very gently because she'd never seen another little person that kind of sort of looked like her, because she saw herself in the mirror and she would go smile at herself in the mirror and things, but this child wasn't mirroring her. And she touched her, and then she went and played behind the child. The child had had exposure to social events in this particular park. They came from another part of the country. This park even looked different than any place they'd ever been. So that was the first aha moment for me. I'm like, this child has never seen another child. And through testing, I see children all the time. One of the questions of our social emotional scale is, how does your child play with 2 or 3 same age peers? Well, haven't had any opportunity. So we fast forward a little bit, and that was like in the fall of last year when it was pretty and they could get out a little bit. And then it got yucky and with no income. And this child requires some specialized food and different things. So they're having to go out of Ashe County to find the food. They have to go out of Ashe County to find things. Well, now they don't have gas and car and all this stuff. They're totally relying on the goodness of grandparents. Well, lo and behold, they all got COVID. Grandmother and grandfather got it first because they went somewhere to help take care of other family members that were in the hospital, brought it back. Grandpa almost died. And while they were calling the ambulance to come and get Grandpa, Grandma almost had a heart attack and a panic attack and passed out over top of him. So they took both of the grandparents to the hospital. Grandpa stayed in 2 weeks, developed some health issues, and now is on oxygen 24/7 because of COVID. Well, he was the breadwinner in the family after all these professionals had lost their positions. And the hole keeps getting deeper and deeper. But the family is trying to be resilient. And through this whole process, they were trying to keep mom and child separated in a small house. Ended up child had COVID. Now the child has regressed in sleeping, has regressed in eating, which those two were challenges before COVID. And now the child will not be without being close to mom. The other people in the house can't do anything for her. And now she's not eating. Eating was a problem before. Eating, sleeping, and pooping were her biggest challenges, we thought. And through assessment, we were kind of thinking, okay, this child has some peculiar characteristics and sort of some red flags for what could possibly be autism. But how can you say definitely? Because the child has never been in a socialized setting, never played with other children, never had an opportunity to explore any other environments other than her home in the other place where they lived when they were professionals and making good money, and come in to live in a small home with grandparents in the Appalachian Mountains where they don't really know anyone. They don't have community support. They have a little bit of family support, but now they all had COVID and all these challenges. And when I met with the parents had to take about a 3-month hiatus from infant toddler services because they were just trying to survive. They were trying to get through every day, and all of their health was affected. Dad says everything smells like cigarettes now after COVID. His breathing is still challenged, needs medical attention, but can't afford it because he doesn't have any insurance anymore. Mom has all of her medical issues that she had prior to COVID. Now she's had COVID. Everything that she tastes and smells tastes like gasoline. So who knows what this child is smelling and tasting after COVID, but she's not eating, which was already a concern. So now they're at a point where they say, we've got to do something. We've got to do something. This child needs some socialization. We need to get on with things because she's getting older. Here she is, almost 2, through this whole process, never been in a socialized setting, but she needs to be, because mom finally asked me the question, do you think my child is autistic? And I said, well, truthfully, I have seen some red flags, but that's not fair to your child because your child hasn't had an opportunity to be out exploring the world, being with other children. So it's really hard. And I have another family that moved here because of employment. Dad got a job with Samaritan's Purse. So here they come across the country. It's great, but this is not a really good time to be trying to develop your community, because before they were trying to go to different churches, but then it was shut down. Um, we typically try to help connect families with Children's Council, the Playhouse, moms groups, moms morning out, those kind of things. But that's been shut down. Families didn't feel comfortable doing that, and it wasn't available. So it doesn't matter how much money we made prior to COVID. Doesn't really make that much difference what we made through COVID. But now, on the flip side of trying to come out of it, people aren't having the same jobs. There's scarcity in childcare. I tried to help this family get childcare. There's no subsidy right now. I even talked to one of the childcare providers. Mom is willing to go and work for free or for exchange for childcare. But there hasn't been enough staff to even open up another room to add on to serve more kids, because there's not the staff. So there's all kinds of challenges that we're seeing, not even counting the domestic violence, the lack of just basic needs that people are struggling through, and doing everything that we do virtually. We miss a lot of the body language with families. We miss building that rapport. Used to, I could go sit down in the floor with a child and talk to the parent while I'm playing with the child and find out so much that they aren't even telling me, but can't do that anymore. So there are some struggles, and the good thing is we're resilient. And sometimes it takes longer for things to happen in the Appalachian Mountains, because if you think about it, a long time ago, people came here and had to really work hard and develop their resources. But what I've noticed living here all my life, people here are resilient. But sometimes it takes longer for things to get here. And it almost seems like it takes longer for it to go, because like the recession, it took longer to hit here, but it took longer for us to dig out of it. And I'm afraid that it's kind of like with COVID. COVID came and it's going to take us a while, but we're strong people. We've toughed other storms together, and we will get through this, but we may just have to adjust ourselves a little bit and adjust how we help people through this storm with services. And like Andy said, we're going to see a lot of impact on social emotional development, and we are developing every day different ways to help. And I think Megan, our occupational therapist, will shed a lot of light on sensory impact of not being able to explore your world, not being able to be outside, turning flips and cartwheels like I used to have to do after I got home from school. I was stuck in a box all day, and then I had to get out and swing and do cartwheels and go play in the creek and throw rocks and those kind of things. Kids haven't been able to do that. So I'm going to let my coworkers take over, but it's just a little bit different way of thinking about it. It doesn't matter if you're a professional, and sometimes it hurts worse when you have been used to a certain lifestyle and then have to come down to a different lifestyle. But I think as long as we're in this together, helping each other, we can help coach people through, like Sean was talking about, help build on the ideas and help us all to be resilient together.
Thank you, Teresa. That was a good experience hearing about all those different layers of struggle, because I, get so focused on what school looks like or parenting my own child, and just hearing about the massive ripple effects. And thank goodness they have an agency that's in this, with them on this journey, because they're not connected yet, really. So really happy that y'all are able to be there and help with them with some of their challenges. So thank you for sharing that. So Megan, we're going to talk about some reintegration strategies.
Yes. So as an occupational therapist, I'm always looking at things from the perspective of daily routines and how our nervous system is experiencing the world around us and how it's reacting to other people and the expectations that we put on our nervous system. Because we've all put our nervous system through a lot this past year, and it shows up in many different ways. And especially when families are put in these situations of isolation for children and for different families, being cut off from their resources and being cut off from different community supports that we typically have and different social engagements. So just to kind of piggyback on what Andy was talking about with not having that exposure to different environments, how that impacts our sensory system's ability to integrate new information from our environments. A lot of these children are having difficulties with managing large crowds, having difficulties in new giant stores. Think about being in a small home and then all of a sudden mom wants to go shopping at Walmart for an hour. Your little nervous system might not be able to take that input of noise, fluorescent lighting, of lots of busy people and movement, all this visual stimuli that can cause a lot of unrest in a developing nervous system. And that can present in a myriad of ways, from melting down to head banging or grabbing their ears, or maybe even if you have a kid that just zones out. You might have a kid that can't respond to any kind of verbal directions or cues in these new environments because so much information is coming into their little brains. They can't differentiate what is important, who's talking to me, what do those words mean? What are you trying to get me to do? So kind of having patience and pulling back, like Andy was saying, doing things in these small incremental ways, slowly exposing them to new environments, maybe at a time where it's not going to be so busy. And when it's not, and going for only 15 minutes at a time, not doing your full shopping list when you've got your kiddo with you, but just going with them to expose them to new things and new environments. Or if you're going to meet your grandparents for the first time, or if you're going to meet new friends or family members, or get them in these new social situations as things start to open up, think about going for shorter periods of time, bringing preferred sensory items with them, having a little backpack with toys that they like, a stuffed animal or comfort item, something that they need to squeeze, or something that they like to rock or swing, because a lot of times that deep pressure and movement input can be really soothing to the nervous system, which can be helpful for kids when they're reintegrating into, or they're trying to get their nervous system to do a lot of new things at once. And then another thing too, understanding that sticking to a set routine can be really hard when we're going through a lot of changes in our environment. Sticking to a set bedtime, a set meal time, when parents or older siblings are changing and adapting to new work schedules, new school schedules, new expectations from their environments, knowing that that shifts everybody in the family's schedule and routine around a little bit. So looking at ways to try to create some sense of consistency and normalcy within those routines, just so that that nervous system knows what's expected of it and what the expectations are in that environment. Just creating consistency wherever we can. And then other things we're noticing issues with too would be just that increased screen time, knowing that this is the world that we live in. This is how we've interacted with all of our family members, with all of our friends. This is how they've socialized. This is how mommy and daddy need to do work, or have had to do work for a long time, and often need to put their child in front of a screen for a little bit so that they can get some peace and quiet and make it through a meeting. That's totally understandable. And that was a great adaptation when you needed those moments to do your job and to, provide for your family. But looking at ways to slowly pull back on that screen time, especially at least an hour before bed, because that really does impact the body's melatonin release. It impacts our body's ability to settle and get into rest. So that's a big one. And those auditory aversions, thinking about how kids are not used to the sounds and the noises from, going to a church service, or, going to, again, Walmart at noon on a Saturday. Those are really noisy settings. So what can we do to help either tamping down that sound with putting headphones, earmuffs, or teaching them how to do earmuffs when it's too loud? Cover your ears. We all have built-in earmuffs right here, and kind of giving them these strategies to recognize, oh, that's why my body feels like, ooh, right now, because it maybe is too noisy, and I can control the sound. I can control what my ears hear, giving them that autonomy in those situations, or giving them resources and options. Maybe that is the time then we put on some music and you let them listen to their favorite song while you're shopping, so that they don't feel that sensory onslaught of noise and echo that a lot of those big stores and buildings can create. Or if, going to church services, is there any way that you can sit in another room, a quiet room, you can still hear the service? Can you augment the time that you're there? Can you go are there different services with less people, or that are geared towards littler people? So different things like that. So just to reiterate, going to new environments during downtime, slowly introducing them, short incremental periods, and really keeping in mind what their nervous system is going through and how you can support it, and what you like. Typically what you like as a parent, or what feels good to your nervous system, is probably going to feel good to your child's nervous system too.
Great. Thank you for all those helpful tips. And I missed reading a chat comment to Teresa, but someone had said that they really liked what she said about things may take longer to get here, but they also take longer to go. So we appreciated that perspective. And everything that you were saying, Megan, reminded me of when I have a 22-year-old son. And when he was born, all the things that they said would work with babies: running the vacuum, putting them in their bouncy seat on the washing machine, riding in the car. He hated every single one of them. He hated going to church. He hated hearing the choir. He hated it being in a car. He hated all of it. And at the time I was like, there's something wrong with my baby. And now looking back with what I know, he had his nervous system was not calibrated the way other people's were. And so wishing I had known that at the time, and how helpful that is to parents, that kids just develop differently, and that you don't have to necessarily force yourself into what you think of as the have-tos, that you can try to adjust some things for the benefit of your child and their development. So thank you very much for all those helpful tips. I appreciate that. And so now we're going to let Kylie talk to us a little bit about how to make a referral. So Kylie.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's really easy to make a referral. Anyone can make a referral. We take referrals directly from parents or caregivers. Whoever has, the primary guardianship of that child, can call and make a referral. Or we can take referrals from doctors, childcare providers. We get referrals from DSS. Anyone directly involved with the child can make a referral. We just ask that if you are a community partner, or if you're a doctor or a DSS caseworker, that you please talk to the family first about our program, so that they know kind of who we are and what we do. And that way, when we call the family, they won't be like, I didn't know I was getting referred. Because sometimes we do get caught off guard when we call those families, and that can be a little bit awkward. But if it's really easy, this is what our referral form looks like. Of course, if a family calls, we can just go through this referral form on the phone with them, and get the information that we need. And then after we get the referral, they get assigned a service coordinator who will follow them through the process of getting evaluated, determining if they qualify or not, and just taking them through the process. And of course, if a child qualifies, we can work with them until they turn 3. And then we help them proceed to the next steps or other programs that they might need. I think Michelle put in the chat our website, or somebody did. So the website also has information about how to make referrals and the different ways that children can qualify. So the website has all of the contact information for our different offices in the different catchment areas. So you can just call like if you live in Boone, you can call the Boone office. If you live in Wilkes, you can call the Wilkes office. But usually if you just go to the website, you can find your county information and just call and make a referral.
And so that's the beearlync.gov. That's the website that you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if you're saying that at 3, they transition out, so the age of referrals then would need to be 0 to 3, I'm guessing.
Exactly. They have to be under 3 to make a
Okay.
referral.
And
Yes.
what type, like if I didn't know anything about this and I was observing or interacting with a family whose child 0 to 3 seemed to need some additional services, what might that look like for someone who's not so used to some maybe behaviors that you're looking for as a means for referral?
Well, I mean, I would say that if you have any kind of, just a gut feeling that something's off, I would definitely just encourage that parent to either call us and make a referral, or you can reach out to us directly and we could send you some brochures because our brochures talk about developmental milestones and different red flags. But we tell people all the time, even if you have just a gut feeling that something is not right, you can make a referral. Because if the child qualifies, that's fine. That's great. But if they don't qualify, we can definitely provide activities and information to that family to maybe help that child get over those hurdles.
And are those typically like delays in walking, delays in talking, delays in developmental milestones that you're usually
Yes.
the basis of most of your referrals?
Yes, we see delays in overall developmental domains. Michelle, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, and also those established conditions. So there are 8 of the categories under established condition, and that's your medical diagnosis. So it could be extremely low birth weight. That would set them up for the potential of having developmental delays. There's also if a child had exposure to any kind of drugs in utero, if they're treated with any kind of drugs after birth to help them with withdrawal, then those children automatically qualify for our program. So it allows us to be able to follow those children and potentially prevent developmental delays that are associated with that medical condition.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to give people a few minutes to ask any questions or make any comments. It's always amazing to me that I can work in this community for 28 years and know people at different agencies and still not even know exactly, how it works. So I appreciate hearing more about kind of the types of things that y'all tend to get involved with and how to access your services. Does anybody have a question or a thought that they'd like to post in the chat? And if you have anything you'd like to say,
I'd like to say something. This is Laurie Semino with the WIC program for the district app, and we love CDSA. We do a lot of referrals to this program, and I hope that you guys refer back. Definitely are 0 to 5. And also we work with one of your new dietitians, Jessica Thackeray. Can you share a little bit about that? I think people would really enjoy that because I think there was something about eating issues. Of course, you know me, I'm all about food. But if you guys want to share, that would be fantastic. That other component of CDSA as well. And speech, that's another excitement. I know you guys do so much for our community. We appreciate everything you do. Thank you, guys.
if the team's okay, I'll take that as the speech language pathologist. Even if I'm the director, I will never move away from my calling of being a speech language pathologist. So that being said, yes, if children are diagnosed with dysphagia and they have that medical diagnosis, that is an automatic eligibility for those children. So if they have been for a modified barium swallow and determined to have that kind of diagnosis, then that's an automatic. So we do work with children with feeding issues. It could be through the dysphagia medical diagnosis. It could be as simple as parent has concern that the child is not moving from stage 1 baby food to stage 2 baby food. And so you have your speech language pathologist here at the CDSA, or the OT, or the nutritionist, or all three of us that may look at that child to determine, is there something that we could help provide to the family to help that child transition from stage 1 to stage 2. It could be some oral motor kind of activities or strategies that might help with that. So yes, we do address any kind of those feeding issues that a family may be having with their child. Speech language, I can tell you the majority of our referrals at the CDSA, either they're not talking or they're not walking. So it's going to be one of those two. But we do have myself on the team, as well as another speech language pathologist with the CDSA. So we do provide communication evaluations for those children that are not developing their speech and language skills as quickly as a parent might think that they need to be. So they can also be part of that entry evaluation to determine if that is a definite area of concern. And if it's not, then you have the most appropriate person on that eval team to talk with the parents and give other strategies that would help that parent continue to make progress with their child. So does that answer your question about the feeding and the speech and language? Okay. Yeah. Sorry,
Thank you,
that's sort of
Michelle.
my little soapbox. I love that area.
Well, we
I
always
was just supporting you. I was just saying, please share, because I think a lot of people are learning about your program.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's not something you advertise. It's more like through referrals. So again,
Right.
I want to say thank you again for all you guys do. And it's so incredible to see all of this strength in this community. Thank you so much, guys.
And I will also say that we are very fortunate at the Blue Ridge CDSA. We do have every discipline represented on our staff. So we have speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, clinical social workers, psychologists, physical therapists, nutritionists, and of course, then our wonderful child specialists, the service coordinators. So we are very fortunate in this area to have all of those areas of expertise on staff.
Well, we so appreciate y'all coming and being with us today and sharing all this really valuable and helpful information. We've got some thank yous and how much we appreciation comments in the chat that I'll be sure to send y'all so you can see those as well. And I'm gonna let everybody go and head to your next thing. It was great to see you. Hope you enjoy the sunshine, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take good care.